Alright, now let's talk about this week's challenge. What are the specific changes that I am challenging you to make in your diet this week? Well, first, I'm going to challenge you to remove some things. Subtraction number 1 is purging the pantry and refrigerator of foods that you know are not adding to your overall health. Next, we'll talk about the concept of calorie counting and why you won't need it. And the 3 major dietary subtractions for the week will be removing added sugar from the diet, as well as reducing or eliminating alcohol and caffeine for the remainder of this nutrition challenge. In order for the body to regenerate in a better form, we have to get rid of any substances that would impair that process. Eliminate what doesn't help you evolve. Challenge number 1, purge the pantry. Get rid of all those packaged and preserved goodies. You gotta start from scratch if you're going to give this program a fighting chance. Anything that you know you shouldn't be eating, get it out now. I'm talking about sodas, chips, pretzels, cookies, goldfish, Little Debbie snack cakes, anything with added sugar, salt, or fat, and anything that you know in your heart to be addictive. If it falls under the category of once you pop, the fun don't stop, then it's gotta go. These foods are chemically designed by professional scientists to have addictive properties. A tremendous amount of money and research has gone into food science in order to discover something called the bliss point of foods. And this is something that these packaged food companies don't want you to know about. The bliss point of food is the amount of an ingredient or combination of ingredients, especially sugar, salt, and fat, in a food that makes it most enjoyable to eat and difficult to resist. When you eat these foods, you are being sucked into the bliss point trap, and you have to use uncomfortable psychological techniques like concerted willpower and even self-shaming in order to put down the bag of chips and get yourself away from these foods. It's a twisted way to get people addicted to a food substance, but it is incredibly effective. As your nutrition coach, my best recommendation for these foods is to just get them out. I'm going to give you plenty of good options for restocking the pantry and refrigerator, but the purge has to occur before your grocery shopping trip. The pantry and refrigerator purge is a very important ritual, so don't skip it. In order to allow what we truly want to manifest in our lives, we have to first remove anything getting in the way of that goal. If you don't feel comfortable throwing away all of your preserved pantry food, then I suggest boxing it up and stashing it in a dark closet until the nutrition challenge is over. Remember that the food I'm asking you to move out is preserved, so it should be fine stashed away in a different dark closet for a few weeks. If at the end of this challenge you decide you're better off without it, then take it to a local food shelter and drop it off. But simply moving the junk food from one location in your house to another really isn't the most ideal option. I would rather have you throw out most of the boxed, canned, packaged, and preserved food items altogether. So if that's the case, then why would I suggest this option? Because for some people, purging the pantry is a big step, and I get it. I don't like to waste things that I have spent money on either. However, the ritual act of purging the pantry is a moment where we get to set an intention for how we want to move forward with our dietary habits from this moment on. So, however you need to go about it is fine with me, as long as those temptations are out of the way and not an option for the remainder of the nutrition challenge. Subtraction challenge number 2. No calorie counting. I want to be clear that we will not be counting calories or grams of carbs, protein, or fat at any point throughout this program. Your body is not a calculator. It is so much more beautifully complex than that. The way that the body breaks down and assimilates food is much more akin to a chemistry lab, meaning that when you eat various different foods, complex biological processes begin to unfold to ensure that the food is properly digested, metabolized, and assimilated into a usable form. Now, I know you might be thinking, wait a minute, if I am not meticulously tracking what I eat, then how will I ever reach my ideal health goals? Think back to our caveman ancestors running around in the woods, picking berries, hunting gazelles, and then stopping under a nice shade tree to calculate how many calories they had consumed for the day. Wait a minute, what's wrong with that picture? My point is that before the concept of the calorie was introduced in the 1920s, people simply relied on consuming unprocessed foods and the old-fashioned practice of listening to the body. When they were hungry, they ate. When they were not hungry, they did not eat. This is a nutritional approach that you can actually get away with, assuming that the foods you are eating are high in quality, unprocessed, and don't contain added salt, fat, or sugars. Calorie counting is one of the most common traps that many people fall into when attempting to lose weight. I don't think I've ever seen this approach approach have a successful long-term outcome. Yes, I have seen people drop substantial weight for a short period of time until they stop willing their body into a mild state of starvation, that is. Eventually, the hunger pangs become too loud and the binging begins. This is typically when people fall off the wagon and ravenously eat more calories than the body needs to sustain itself. At that point, they are right back where they started, if not in an even worse place. And it should be noted that this kind of yo-yo dieting is notoriously bad for the body. Every time you lose weight rapidly and then regain it, your body accumulates more and more fat cells around your internal organs in the abdomen. This is called visceral fat, and it's the bad kind that contributes to heart disease, diabetes, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, and all the things you really don't want. This is a screenshot of a nutritional study. Basically, what it says is that when people restrict their calorie intake over long periods of time, their resting metabolic rate actually changes. It slows down. And a slower metabolism isn't as effective at burning fat. So the moral of this story is that merely restricting calories isn't an effective long-term approach for healthy weight maintenance. I'm inclined to believe that calorie counting is an outdated practice of attempting to micromanage the way the body works, which is something that will change over time as you age, lose vital enzymes for metabolism, and encounter hormone changes. Calorie counting isn't the best long-game approach to nutrition, as it requires far more mental effort than what is necessary. How much time and energy have you spent calculating your meals? For many people, calorie counting just leaves them stressed out and very much over the whole process of trying to eat healthier. The last thing I want you to feel is stressed out or burdened by your pursuit of health. Healthy eating is actually a very fun, engaging, and creative process of self-improvement. It shouldn't be made any more stressful through calorie counting, and as long as we can remain focused on consuming nutrient-dense foods, we won't have to count calories because your body will take the high-nutrient tools you give it and build a much sturdier home in which to reside. So instead of having you monitor calories, I'd like to offer a totally different approach when it comes to weight loss and healthy weight maintenance. For the duration of this program, I don't want you to exclusively think about how many calories are in your food when you make your food choices. What I do want you to pay attention to is how many nutrients and fiber are in the foods that you're eating, because nutrient-dense foods are much more effective at getting you to your most ideal weight and helping you stay there. Now we're going to talk about one thing that we absolutely want to remove from the diet right away, which is added sugars. This week, we'll introduce a lot of nutrient-dense foods in the form of smoothies and salads. So in order to help you absorb those nutrients efficiently, take out foods that have added sugars. You'll need to check the labels of your packaged foods to make sure that there are no added sugars. Added sugars are sugars that don't inherently exist in the food but are added for taste enhancement. So an example of a naturally occurring sugar is the sugar in a banana. There are no added sugars in a banana. Like I said, you'll mostly find added sugars in packaged goods. Just make sure that the label says 0 grams of added sugar. This step alone will have an amazing impact on your health and skin over the course of the next 6 weeks. So if you follow nothing else in this program, then at least follow this. Subtraction challenge number 4, reduce or eliminate caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine is a stimulant and alcohol is a depressant. In our fast-paced world, we tend to use these substances as a means of coping with our stressful day-to-day lives. We use one to get up and one to get down. Both caffeine and alcohol throw off your circadian rhythm by disturbing deep sleep, which is notoriously bad for maintaining a healthy weight. There are many reasons that alcohol is toxic to the body, but for the sake of keeping it concise, what you need to know is that there are a handful of dietary factors that can throw off the balance of the bacteria in your microbiome, and alcohol is one of them. An imbalanced gut is bad news for anyone who wants to maintain a healthy weight or a healthy mental and emotional balance. Alcohol has a direct impact on the hormone balance in the body. When you combine imbalanced gut microbiome with an excess of cortisol, this causes inflammation and leaky gut. Intestinal permeability, or leaky gut, can lead to a full spectrum of inflammatory conditions. Long story short, for the rest of the nutrition challenge, my recommendation is to cut out alcohol altogether. Now let's switch our attention to caffeine, the #1 drug in the Western world. Michael Pollan wrote a relatively short book on the topic of caffeine where he discussed the history of the substance. The Industrial Revolution in the United States coincided with the introduction of coffee breaks in the workplace. People used caffeine to fuel their brains and bodies to almost superhuman levels and to become hyperproductive, or at least hyper-busy. This socially acceptable, yet completely addictive substance has certainly had an impact on the way we operate within society. It is now considered normal to be caffeinated. But there are downsides to caffeine, and these are the primary reasons why I believe it is best for you to remove caffeine or at least cut back on your caffeine consumption for the next few weeks. Number 1, caffeine increases the release of the stress hormone cortisol, and as we have already determined, this can lead to inflammation in the body, leaky gut, and the accumulation of fat around the midsection. If you're walking around with a spare tire, then the stress hormone cortisol is likely to blame, and both alcohol and caffeine contribute to that. Number 2, caffeine decreases insulin sensitivity, which is a subject that we'll talk more about next week. The habituation to coffee can lead to increased blood sugar levels and cardiovascular risk. Number 3, caffeine-containing drinks like coffee are relatively acidic, which can cause digestive problems, indigestion, and heartburn. Number 4, if you're taking any prescription or over-the-counter medications, coffee can interfere with the drug metabolism and detoxification of the liver. Number 5, there is the tendency to get addicted to the freakish energy boost that is provided by coffee. And when you don't have access to your drug of choice, you just don't feel right and can't seem to get your energy level back to quote-unquote normal. Coffee can cause elevated urinary excretion of important minerals such as calcium, magnesium, and potassium. Caffeine disrupts normal sleep patterns, bowel function, mood, and energy levels. Coffee drinking can increase the desire for sugar, syrups, and other high-fat treats. For some people, the thought of removing caffeine entirely is just too much. But like with alcohol, you will make more progress toward achieving your goals if you cut out caffeine altogether. If you are unwilling to let go of your stimulant drug of choice for the next few weeks, then at least let me help you clean up the caffeine habit. In your course materials for the week, I have included a document called Clean Up Your Caffeine Habit. It will give you some ideas for healthier caffeine options.